Good day, Nadia, and welcome to the program.
Thank you for inviting me, Ralph.
Yeah, it's great to have you, and Happy New Year to you as well.
Happy New Year to you too. Hope you had a nice end of the year and beginning of 2021.
Yes, thank you. And so, although I know you, most of our viewers don't. And so, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you end up here?
How did I end up here? How long is this interview? Well, I was at some point in time in the Netherlands, and I was contemplating, if I should return to the Caribbean. They always say that at certain point, if you stay too long in the Netherlands, you'll never come back.
Mm-hmm.
And I was feeling that I was getting to that point. And I also wanted to, find a different route in my career. So I was at a turning point. And then I saw an advertisement for a job in Statia, for actually several jobs in Statia. They were looking for directors because they had just reorganized. And I thought, that might be something interesting for me to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I came back to the region. And after a while, I was in Statia, then I ended up in Curacao. I was working for the CFD, the College of Financial Supervision.
Okay.
And at a certain point, when I was there, I started missing, being in the leadership role, managing. And somebody told me about, the fact that they were looking for a director here in St. Martin for the pension fund.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, my first reaction was no.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of thought, just like many people who might be looking at this interview right now, that working at a pension fund is boring.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, I was so very wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I've ever had a job in my life that is as interesting, exciting, and meaningful as being the director of APS.
Okay. And your education background is in what?
Public administration,
Public administration.
bestuurskunde, for
Okay.
those who are Dutch and watching the program. It's basically the same as business administration, but specifically for government.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting course that you do, because it's really prepares you for managing, but also for policy making and
Mm-hmm.
understanding how policy works,
Mm-hmm.
how government works, how the intricacies between private and public work together.
Mm-hmm.
So I always thought it was a very interesting thing to study, and I always encourage young people who are interested in government to study it.
That's great. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because one of the issues we sometimes face is people don't quite understand the role of several bodies on the island.
Oh, yeah.
And so can you, share with us or explain what is the role of APS exactly? And
Yeah.
the difference between
Yeah.
APS and government.
Well, it's something that I notice is often confused a lot. Sometimes people put APS in the role of government, or they put government in the role of APS.
Mhm.
But each entity has its own separate responsibilities.
Mhm.
For example, one of the things I hear a lot, especially around Christmas time, is I would like APS to come with a Christmas bonus. Now, that could be a very interesting idea indeed, but APS doesn't decide on such things. That is something that government needs to decide on. For example, government could say, I'm just coming up with an idea, government could say, okay, we're going to make a law, we're going to institute a Christmas bonus for pensioners. Once that is done and passed through parliament and made into a law, then APS need to execute the law.
Correct.
So that's our role. We basically execute whatever law
Mhm.
is for us to execute.
Correct.
And that is our responsibility. So we don't actually create, an idea or Christmas bonuses or any other thing. Those are things the government has to do. We are just, let's say, executioners.
Yeah, the agent, yeah.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
And so you mentioned that, you was not sure that, this would be a job that you would enjoy. But nonetheless, as you got into this role, what sort of training did you undergo, and then how did you prepare yourself? And how do you keep yourself informed while still, being a director?
At first, I really had to understand what a pension fund does, because at first I think also, just like most people, you just think about our role as a paying pensions.
Correct.
When you think of a pension fund, you think, okay, every month pension is on somebody's account at the same time every month. That's basically our most important role. But next to that, you also have to ensure that the fund itself, the monies that we have, that they generate and accumulate over time in order to pay pensions not only today, but tomorrow and 10 years from now and 20, 30 years from now. So that part, which is that's in the more interesting part, which is the investment part, is looking for local investments, ensuring that you have good international investments. That is basically what makes it very broad and interesting and exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when we do a project, for example, like Oryx, you have to imagine that you hire contractors, right? Contractors hire workers. Those workers pay taxes. All of that goes back into the economy.
Right.
That makes basically the economy work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so knowing that when you make a move as an organization, you have such a big effect on the economy of your country, that is very special. There are not many jobs that you can have in which you can really make an impact with your everyday work, and that's something I'm very proud of. And to be able to do that, I had to train, I had to educate myself first in the world of pensions. I really had to dive into that, and you know, you need to be open for that. You know, you have to have an open mind. If you're going to be like, I can't do this, or it's too difficult, you're never going to be able to learn.
True.
But we at APS have a very strong policy when it comes to education, and we spend the time and money on educating our staff and making sure they're up to date with the newest laws, but also the teamwork and how to write good policies and how to write good advices. So we are constantly busy with that.
Gotcha. Okay, great. And it's basically been a little over a year since COVID has affected the world in each and every single one of our lives. And now that we have hope in the prospects of the vaccine, could you share a bit about how APS has fared during that period, and how did you innovate and adjust?
Well, after Irma, I had experienced what it was like, to go through a calamity without having a business continuity plan. And even though we were able to, pay our pensions on time and keep everything on track, I was like, I don't want to do it like that ever again.
Yeah.
Because I always feel like if you have a plan in place and scenarios in place, you don't really have to come up with things from scratch. So I had endeavored after Irma to ensure that we have such plans in place. So I hired a team, we worked on it, and I had it worked out and everything. And in January of 2020, I actually was giving a lecture in Aruba. I think it was mid-January, around the 20th of January, I was giving a lecture in Aruba on that subject. So I was standing in a office, in a room full of pension fund directors, directors of insurance companies, and so on, and talking to them about how you need to be prepared for all kinds of calamities. I shared my experience with Irma, but I also explained how important it was to have different scenarios planned out. For example, if your IT would give out, if you had loss of crucial employees, if you had a fire or a pandemic. I was giving this course, this lecture, not knowing that only a month and a half later, I would actually be applying it myself. And that was really funny because we had in our schedule March live training at APS. Now, believe it or not, we all were doing a live training on St. Martin. We were all doing it together. And it was scary, but also really, really great because we were able to test our plans. So each scenario that we used for being able to work throughout the pandemic was tested thoroughly in a real life situation. We were able to adjust where needed to be adjusted, and in the end, I think we came through the pandemic completely unscathed because a lot of people basically almost didn't even notice if something was not able to be done or not. The only thing that I think was a real struggle was having good and reliable internet, because as we all had to work from home, this is here at the office we have one of the heaviest internet
Bandwidth,
lines
yeah,
that you
bandwidth.
can think of,
Right.
right? So we are on point once when we're in the office, but when you're at home, you have your
Strain.
home internet.
Yeah.
And that is different. So when people have to do things that take a lot of,
Data.
internet broadband, it's very slow and you have your issues. So that is the only thing that we really feel was a concern, but it's not something APS can truly change.
Correct.
I think that's more something for the telecom companies and government to really look at.
Yeah,
If you-
especially now.
Yeah, especially now. But other than that, what we had control over, what we could take care of was done. And I'm really proud of my team. I mean, without people like, working in the middle of the night because of the internet situation, so people can get, the information or their pensions on time, we wouldn't have been able to make it.
Understood.
And once we were able to come back to the office, we worked via a different protocol, our COVID guidelines. Those that the government came with, but also additional things that we came up with to keep our employees safe.
Gotcha. So what are the plans that you have for the fund for this year, 2021?
For this year, well, one of the things I ended the year with was our image survey.
Okay.
I think a lot of people who might be watching right now participated and gave their opinion on how we're doing and what they think we could do better and what they think we're not doing good. And that was really, really good because we got a lot of information from that. So we know what we need to focus on, we know what we can focus on less. Believe it or not, people want us to be even more on social media. And that is throughout all the ages. So that's a good result. And also we want to really focus, like I said, on what does APS really do? What's our role? And really, keep explaining that. Another item that has come forward is that people are very interested in our investments. So we will be doing a lot more in our social media, newsletters, and so on investments. We will have extensive coverage of them so that people can really get to know our investments better in depth. This is what APS does.
That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah. So
Especially
we've been working on that for 2021 and going forward.
Okay, great. And as you mentioned, your investments, the Oryx residencies are almost fully sold out.
Yes.
So is APS looking at developing more homes, especially since that is quite a major need on that?
We are a pension fund.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that we chose to become developers is something that is very unique and rare.
Yeah.
But we felt that if we didn't do it, nobody else would. And basically in that price point, nobody else is.
Yeah.
So I think it was very important of us to show also for the developers out there, that in the middle class price point, there are quite a lot of
Market,
people
yeah,
who
yeah.
are interested, and especially when using the lease to own option. As we know, we have had Irma, there's still a lot of people who have good salaries who are basically, still, struggling and getting themselves back to where they were after Irma. So being able to give people the option of a lease to own, in which you slowly put in to your mortgage,
Correct.
basically,
Correct.
so that you can at some point when you have more financial freedom
Yeah.
pay towards your mortgage, that basically gives people options and breathing space at the same time. So I hope that by giving this little push, and showing what the market in St. Martin really can do for the middle class, that this might actually turn the tables, that we can get some developers who will want to develop for that group.
True.
We would love to finance it, but we would prefer not to be developers this time. We would
Understood.
prefer to just do what pension funds do and
Okay,
finance.
gotcha. And around how many homes were developed? If
We
you-
develop now about 62 homes.
Wow. And so it's at 80% sold basically.
Well, that was last week.
Oh wow.
I think I have 8 homes left. I mean, I didn't check this morning, but I was told yesterday 8 homes, and that's 4 apartments and 4 townhouses.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yes, and everything else is either under contract or in the process of being leased or sold.
But then again, too, home ownership is very much ingrained in our cultural heritage.
Yes,
So,
yes.
and as you said, it's the market for it is
Yes.
it's huge.
You know, we have in St. Martin, and from what I've seen, a very good market for, let's say, the upper middle class and the rich and the famous.
Sorry.
You know, so if you have like
The
2 million
middle
hanging
class.
around and you
Yeah.
want to buy a house, no problem. There's enough for you here. But if you want something between 200 and 250,000, a good, decent home
Yeah.
is almost impossible.
Yeah,
I mean, you
yeah.
can find things, but they're old, 20 years
Or the
old.
location is sometimes.
Location
yeah.
is, you know,
Yeah.
so, and these are brand new homes. That's
Correct.
that's a different level.
Mhm.
And that's why I think it's very important to realize, and I hope developers can think about how they can develop within this price point more and at a quality
Mhm.
level that is comparable to what we did. I think that will be very important for in the future.
Okay.
We are definitely willing to finance whoever comes up with some good ideas
Great.
that can
So-
get through our due diligence.
That's another thing.
Yes.
Well, I'm not actually going to get to your due diligence. But my other question is, what were some of the challenges you realized as far as financial position of buyers, and so what advice I guess would give people in trying to get their financial position
Yes.
in a solid ground.
When we first started out with Oryx, we were very focused on selling the home. So we
Mhm.
were thinking people are going to go to the bank that we chose. We work with Banco de Caribe, and they're going to go with their documentation, they're going to get a loan, and that's it. But once basically the bank went through about half of the people who had put in their names, we realized that people were very indebted.
Mhm.
So a lot of people had IRMA loans, for example, or they had credit card debt, or they had, let's say,
Car
2
loans.
cars,
Yeah.
3 cars, and sometimes even more. But what happens if you have all of these loans, no matter what the reason is, it will, let's say, lower your ability to afford, let's say, the home that you want.
Mhm.
So maybe you will qualify for 190,
Mhm.
but your actual home that you want is 220.
Mhm.
How do you fill that gap,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that gap, for example, can be filled by paying down on your car loan faster, or getting rid of that credit card, or getting rid of the IRMA loan. But in any case, okay, I need 2 years to do that. I need 3 years to do that. I need 4 years to do that. And by having a lease to own as an option, which we came up with when we noticed that this was the basically the gap, we were able to fill it.
Mhm.
And it has been, the response to lease to own has been overwhelming. I mean, I have had homeowners tell me, if you didn't do this, I would have never been able to own my own home.
Wow.
And that fills me with pride,
Yeah.
because the flexibility that we basically have shown, and ability to think on our feet, because this is something that we really come up with, like, I think within a couple of weeks.
Wow.
And the patience of those who were waiting to hear if they would be able to get that home is really overwhelming. It's great. I'm really happy. And yeah, now we are almost fully sold out.
True. And the thing is, it's also that guaranteed long-term income, because as you mentioned, for example, yes, you may have people with an easy $2 million waiting to invest, but then one thing for sure is, come what may, your people are going to stay here.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yeah.
you're guaranteed that.
Yes, and it's a
security.
really nice environment. You
Correct.
have so many young couples with kids. You have people walking the dogs in the morning, in the afternoon. It feels like a community.
Yes, exactly.
You start to know your neighbors.
Correct.
It's wonderful.
And safe.
It's safe,
Exactly.
and that is something everybody, I think, really was eager to have.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Okay. And as far as projects are concerned as well, APSs, I think your quota is 60% local. What projects will APS be interested in investing in?
Okay, the first step for us to invest in a project is receiving a good business plan. And that is often the most difficult part of them all, because once somebody has a good idea, good ideas have all the time.
Correct.
They need to get through our due diligence,
Mm.
and to be able to just get in the door, you will need to have a solid business plan. That's step one. Your solid business plan is going to be what we are going to look at. We're going to crunch your numbers. We're going to stress test it. So you need to be able to give us a document that really explains why you're doing this. Who is your market? What is your expected cash flow for the coming years? How are you going to pay back that loan? How much money are you going to put in? Okay, because we're not going to only be the ones, you know,
Correct.
to
You
take
wanna
the
see
risk.
that,
I want to
yeah,
see what
be
you're going to
partners,
put in
correct,
too,
yeah.
you know, and also projects for a pension fund need to be of a certain size. We don't do small loans, you know, 10,000 guilders or dollars. We don't do that type of thing. So oftentimes when people come with those type of plans, I do send them to Q Credits, which is a better opportunity for, let's say, the small business owner type of thing. But that is the first step. That is the first step. And I do think there are several interesting areas that can be developed. I see opportunities in utilities, in waste management, especially waste management. I think there's so many good ideas. I mean, I'm ready to finance them once we get a good business plan. In the yachting industry, those are industries that, for example, are much less affected by pandemics and calamities. The rich and famous, they go where they want to go. There's almost nothing that stops them, right? We see how many ships are in the harbor these days. It doesn't really matter that we have a pandemic at the moment. So it's very important to realize that there are several industries where you can you know, still develop and still, you know, make a living with.
Okay. And what can you share about other APS investments, such as the Mary Fancy Estate and the Telcel, well, the parking lot next to the building? I don't know.
Ah, yeah.
I don't know if you have a specific name for it.
APS parking.
APS parking, sorry, I said Telcel.
No, the APS parking. Well, let's start with Mary's Fancy first. Mary's Fancy is really exciting because we have just put in the permit on January 18th at Vromi. So we are awaiting.
That's the boutique hotel for.
Boutique hotel, restaurant, gym, spa, everything.
Oh, so there's more amenities.
Amphitheater, everything. There'll be everything there. So, but we're still looking for an operator. So we will make sure that everything is there, but we are still looking for an operator, someone to run that boutique hotel or someone to run that restaurant, or maybe both. You know, it's still, you know, something that is very necessary that we find the right person or the right company.
The shell is there, but
So permit has been put in, and then once we are approved, we can start with the construction.
So in addition to that, you also have the office park located basically next to the Vineyard building.
Yes.
So what can you share about what's taking place there?
Yeah, so for those who are not familiar to Office Park, that is the building where you have the notary book out and SOA Bay, and they are located there. Those buildings are our operating real estate. So we have the building in the front and there's also a building in the back. And what is going to happen next is that we are going to develop the behind, because the land, all the land is ours.
Up to the top of the hill?
Up to the top of the hill.
Nice.
Of course, there are restrictions on how high you can build, but yes, the land is ours. And what we are going to do next is develop our office building in the back. Also some parking for the Phillipsburg Center. So people will be able to park their cars there and go do whatever they need to do in the city. And
that's quite a need.
Yes. So there's several things that we're gonna do there. We have chosen a construction company. We are currently finalizing the design of our office building. You know, I think after 10 years of existence, it's time to have our own building, right?
Your own HQ,
Yeah, I think it's time to have our own building. We are looking at a very iconic design, something that, you know, fosters trust and integrity, and something that can withstand any hurricane.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's also a lovely location.
Yeah, so we'll have a good view.
Very quiet area.
Quiet area, we'll have a nice view. And I think it will be very nice for people also coming to the office. You know, like when people, hopefully by then it won't be appointment only, because right now we're appointment only because of the COVID-19 guidelines. But in the future, when we have our own office, people will be able to easily park at our office for the appointments,
Mhm.
or just walk in whenever they need to walk in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, in addition to that, the Trump administration was many things, but it was also financially beneficial to the pension fund. And so, can you share with our viewers how how the president and his or her policies affects the financial markets, especially given that we invest?
Yes, let me put a disclaimer first. Personally, I am, of course, not a pro-Trump person. I mean, he is very xenophobic, and I believe very much that he is not, let's say, too much of a person who I should be for. However, when it comes to the way the policies he had, for example, when it comes to the economy of the U.S., he, for example, removed several taxes.
Mhm.
Well, if you remove taxes from companies, companies make more profit.
Mhm.
If you make more profit as a company, that means on the stock market you'll be worth more also.
Mhm.
In short.
Mhm.
So what happens is that for the years that Trump has been in office, especially for this last year, 2020, we have been able, and not only we, all pension funds and everybody who's been, investing on the stock market has made some considerable gains.
Mhm.
And I can definitely say that we have ended the year strong with one of our highest coverage ratios to date, which is about 113%.
Mhm. Well, it's often mentioned that when Democrats come in, so does taxes. So, what do you expect now that Biden is in? And
Well, to give an indication, a lot of followers say, hey, the moment Biden would come in, in November, you would see that the stock market would take a hit, but that didn't happen. So the sentiment is still positive. December, we also saw gains
Mhm.
instead of,
Reductions.
reduction. So I think that Biden, you have different types of Democratic presidents. You have Democratic presidents who are indeed more of the leftist kind, and you have Democratic presidents who are more in the middle,
Yeah.
and you have Democrats who are more on the right.
Correct.
So I don't see Biden as, let's say, what you would get if you had a Bernie Sanders, of course.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I do think that we will see maybe, and I'm not an analyst, we might see a little bit less gains than if you had a Trump in office, but I do think that having Biden there will be sure a sign of stability for the economy. I think we might see some good gains, but it will be more spread out than it would have been with Trump. And some analysts also say that the way Trump managed the economy in the U.S. also would have a deadline. You cannot just keep spending, and you cannot, at some point you're gonna get the invoice for
correct,
his
correct.
style of
Correct.
management of the country. So,
Correct.
I mean, the positives and negatives, and I think for the fund and those who invest abroad, I think we can be mildly positive for sure about the prospects of the coming years.
Okay. All right. So the last two questions touch on leadership. First one being, the importance of diversity, especially when it comes to being a woman in leadership. And so, what can you share on that?
Well, as a woman who is a director of a pension fund, I'm in good company in the Dutch Caribbean, because in the Dutch Caribbean, most of the directors of pension funds are female.
Wow.
Yes. So that
Reminds
is
me of a Beyonce song.
yes. So that is something I'm very happy that I can say. But of course, it will be very good to see more women take up these type of roles. And yes, it's not easy because these type of jobs take a lot of time, and it's not easy to blast through the glass ceiling. But sometimes you just gotta do it.
Sure.
You just gotta do it.
Sure.
And over the years, you see several women, get to positions that a lot of people thought were impossible. We now have a female, black, and Asian, South Asian, I should say, VP. I mean, wow. I mean, who could have thought that a couple of years ago?
Correct.
So I think everything and anything is possible as long as you're willing to work hard for it and do your best. And I think especially in these type of financial positions, our psyche as a female is perfect for it. We are not
Sure.
risk takers. We're not risk takers. They tend to say in all kinds of psychology books that men take a little bit more risk than women. They're a little bit more cocky, like they say. And women think about things just a little bit longer. So we are natural, because naturally conservative when it comes to that. We don't take risks. We tend to really...
The stabilizers.
Yeah, stabilize. I mean, if you stabilize in a family, you can stabilize in a company,
I
right?
was just going to say that too. I mean,
Yeah.
come to think of it, it's kind of a perfect role because I think almost everyone can agree, well, maybe your father was a breadwinner. The one who managed the money was your mother.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of our families, a lot of how times when we grew up, it was
Yeah.
like that. And I could think about back as my grandmother,
Mhm.
from my mother's side, she even worked when she came to Aruba. And this is the time when a lot of our grandparents went to Aruba to work in Lago. I mean,
Mhm.
that's how I ended up being born in Aruba.
Mhm.
Because my heritage, my family is from French St. Martin, Anguilla, Saba, Statia. So I'm from off the islands, right?
Gotcha.
I was born in Aruba because of all these people who went down there.
Mhm.
I mean, my grandmother traveled by herself from Anguilla in a boat, from island to island to island to island, to get herself all the way to Venezuela, to then cross over to Aruba
Wow.
to go work there all by herself.
Mhm.
And I think we come from a very strong line of women,
Indeed.
and I think that definitely helped me be able to know that I have the backing to achieve anything I want to achieve in my life,
Mhm.
because I've had very strong female examples
Mhm.
that basically tell me, don't you dare give up, because you can do it.
Correct.
And if we all encourage our daughters and also our sons to be all they can be, I think the world is your oyster and you can do anything
Indeed.
you want.
And so my final question is, what are some of the toughest lessons you've learned as a leader?
The toughest lesson is maybe two. To admit when you're wrong.
That's a good one.
Yeah, because I always get concerned when somebody thinks they're always right.
Mhm.
When somebody is always right, you need to try to think about, how is that even possible statistically?
Mhm.
It's not possible.
Correct.
So you need to be aware of that in yourself. I also know, because of that, I'm aware what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And if I'm not good at something, I have someone else help me with that.
Correct.
Some people think, okay, if you're a director, you have to decide everything yourself and you have to think of everything yourself. No, you have a team to help with that.
Mhm.
Everybody has their own expertise. I'm not good at everything, but I have someone who's good in the financial. I have someone who's good in the communication, sitting right behind you, making sure everything is in order. So you need to work in a team. And I think that we are only as good as how good our team is.
Indeed.
So if you have a bad team behind you, you're going to be a terrible leader. If you have a good team behind you, you're going to be a great leader. So I think that is something that's very important. And I think also the second thing I would say is being open, to learn. You can't know everything, so you need to be open to learn,
Makes sense.
gain knowledge,
Mhm.
listen to others, listen to different perspectives, and as long as you stay open to different perspectives and different thoughts and different ideas, you will be able to keep yourself sharp and grow. And I've always believed in learning from those who have done things before me,
Indeed, yeah.
especially our elders.
Yeah.
And when they have their stories to tell you about, I mean, you just interviewed an amazing elder a couple of days ago, and when you listen to their experiences and you catch the gist of what really matters in life,
Exactly, yeah.
it could save you a whole lot of heartache right
yes,
now.
Yes.
So I really truly believe in listening to our elders, listening to their lessons, and gaining their knowledge, so that you can really be able to skip
Yeah.
and get to where you need to be.
So that by the time you're that elder, then you can, do the same for another
Yes.
youngster.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, so that is what I would want to share.
Well, thank you so much for this wonderful interview. It was definitely engaging, and wish you all the best.
Thank you for asking me and asking all those great questions.